America, and nice to have you with us on a Wednesday afternoon, the 9th day of May, the year 2018, and welcome, and good afternoon, everybody, as here we go now, busy afternoon of sports talk on a great SiriusXM 82, Eddie, Colin, Steve, and of course, Bill Zimmerman today. Yours truly, Christopher Russo. We take you through your day as we chat to you about what's going on at 888 Mad Dog 6, your two-way sports talk telephone number on Vera Molly Russo's birthday today, the 9th day of May, 2018. No need to know the age, but she's still alive and kicking and flying well, so happy birthday to her as we talk to you about what's cooking. We'll do a little NBA later. We're going to start with the NBA, too. Baseball today, too. Red Sox and Yankees. We'll spend some time on that. The hockey, of course, has a little bit of a respite right now. We start Game 1 in the Washington-Tampa series on Friday. We will obviously do the Nashville-Winnipeg series Game 7 tomorrow. We'll have a little this, a little that as far as the TPC is concerned, and we'll chat with you about what's going on in the world of sports. Well, listen, this is what everybody wanted in the NBA, at least in their circles. We wanted to see a situation where maybe we had an opportunity for a Golden State-Houston conference final. Houston's been the best team in the NBA regular season-wise for a long time, but we saw what that meant for Toronto, who were the number one seed in the East with 59 wins and meant nothing against LeBron and the Cavaliers. Houston won 65 games, about 7 or 8 more than, or maybe a little less than that, 6 more than Golden State. And the Warriors, of course, the defending champs, and now we get the two of them in a best-of-7 clash. Toronto had home court against Cleveland, meant nothing. Houston has home court against Golden State. We shall see in the end of the day what, in fact, that means. Listen, you could have predicted this a long time ago. It's a major issue that the NBA has to deal with on a day-in, day-out basis. The predictability of the big stars coming through in big games and playing for the titles at the end. There's a reason why Golden State limps through the regular season and got a little bored in 2017 and 18. LeBron actually played 82 games this year, which was something he hadn't normally done. He wanted to do that. He did, and they made a big trade, and they were sort of up and down like a roller coaster. They didn't play that well. Very, very shaky in certain spots in the year. But at the end of the day, what difference did it make? I mean, all right, they didn't have home court for the Eastern Conference. They didn't even have home court in round 2. But here they are right now after a very up and down first series against Indiana. They wait to see if Boston can polish off Philly. And then they play the Celtics. We'll have to get to that series when we see it and make sure the Celtics win first tonight in Game 5. But, I mean, again, the Cleveland deal this year is not a big deal. What remains to be seen what it means for Golden State, who last night, had a 20-point lead going into the fourth quarter, polished off the game Pelicans. The Pelicans played pretty well this series. They could have won Game 2. They played really well in Game 3. They got blitzed early in Game 4. They were pretty competitive for 2.5 quarters in Game 5, but, just not enough firepower to deal with the Warriors. You got to outscore Golden State and to beat them because, you're not going to win the 85-83 game because they have too many weapons with too many guys who can score. So, chances are to stop all three in the same game is next to impossible. So you're going to have to outscore them. And obviously New Orleans on a nightly basis could not do that in that series. I thought they might win another game. I thought they may have been a little bit more competitive in the fourth game than it turned out to be, but overall, I don't think anybody's going to quibble with the Pelicans 2017-18 season, a la the Raptors, who were a mess. But the bottom line is, you could have predicted this a long time ago. Even with all the injuries that the Celtics had, you figured that, with Stevens and with the 3 or 4 players they had on their roster, maybe you didn't think they'd get to a conference final, and they're going to beat Philly. I don't know when, but they're going to beat them. And Philly's favorite tonight, which is amazing. But you had to figure that Boston's got no respect from the bookmakers. They were a big underdog after Game 1. They were even an underdog after Game 2, and they were an underdog tonight, which is hard to believe. And they were underdog by 9 points in Game 3. So, for whatever the reason, Vegas has not respected the Celtics in this postseason to date. We'll see how that works itself out tonight. But again, back in October, we could have, written down. I know we didn't expect Hayward and Irving to miss the season, but we could have written down a Boston, Cleveland, Golden State, Houston semifinal in the NBA and been done with it and eliminated wasting 6 months of watching basketball basketball and wasting a lot of time watching the first and second rounds of this postseason. This second round has been a disaster. First round had a little more juice than normal. Utah upset Oklahoma City. The Pelicans, without home court, polished off Portland. Wasn't a great series, but the fact that there was an upset made it interesting. And obviously, the Cavs had to play a seventh game. So, there was a little more juice than normal in the first round, which you like to see. They actually got a game 7 out of it, which they don't normally do. In the second round, everything came back to norm. I mean, the Cavs didn't really work hard after game 1, no issues. The Celtics, surprisingly enough, have polished off Philly, and of course, Golden State and Houston did exactly what they had to do. So, I think everybody thought at the beginning of the year we'd be sitting and looking at this. Maybe we thought that Boston would not after the injuries, but here they are right now on the verge. And now we get ready for a Golden State-Houston series and see what transpires. So now listen, Houston's got home court, which, can't hurt. But from what I have seen in the postseason, and I probably have watched Houston play, 7 of the 10 games, maybe, at least parts of it. And I have probably watched Golden State. I haven't watched the West Coast late night games. I'm just not staying up for the Spurs in game 2. I'm just not doing it to 2 o'clock in the morning. And if they're going to embarrass me by putting Pelicans and Warriors on at 10:30 on a Saturday night in game 1, as they did 10 days ago, they're not going to get my dime in watching it. But I probably watched the 2 games in New Orleans. I probably watched some of games. I watched probably 3 of the first series, 3 of the second series, couple of the first series. I got a feel of both teams. And from what I have seen in this first couple rounds, forget the regular season. We just discussed it. Nobody cares. What I have seen in the first couple of rounds, I would be very, very surprised if Houston threatened Golden State in this best of 7. You want to tell me they win a game? You want to tell me that they are pretty competitive in another couple of those losses? I can buy it. But I would be very, very surprised if forget winning. I would be surprised if there was a moment in this series where you were a little worried about Golden State surviving. If you got that, Houston did its job. What I mean by that is Houston win game, Houston being ahead in the series. Maybe they're up 2-1 and Golden State's in a little trouble in game 4. Something like that. If Houston gets to that spot in this series, I would be, they would have had a successful season. For Houston to have a successful season, they got to push the Warriors here. I don't mean push them where they're down 3-1, they win game 5 and lose game 6. That's not pushing the Warriors. When you're down 3-1 and you win the 5th game at home and you go on the road and you lose game 6, I'm sorry. That is not my definition of a push. That's an easy ouster in 6 games. What I want to see, if I'm going to believe in the Houston direction with D'Antoni, and I want to go crazy on Harden, who did nothing last night, I want to see the Rockets put the Warriors in a situation leading up to a particular game or in a game where I can actually say to myself for a few minutes with conviction, wow, Golden State's in trouble here. And let me say that, and I will evaluate what that might mean. 2-1 down and having the Warriors fight for their lives in game 4, that is not trouble. I want them with a lead in a series, specifically on the road with Golden State in a little trouble. Then we get into a situation, maybe 2-2 game 5 and the Rockets have a lead in the second half, something like that. And I will evaluate it myself, what in fact I want to discuss as trouble for the Warriors. Other than that, to me, I'm not going to go crazy because the Houston Rockets have gotten to a 3rd round of an NBA postseason. Last night looked like Harden was a little flat. I didn't see a lot of this game. I was watching the Yankees and the Red Sox, but, I saw what Paul did in the last 6 minutes. 39 points, or he had 41, whatever he had, high 30s, early 40s. Made 4 or 5 big shots in a row late in the game when Utah, surprisingly enough, threatened Houston. I mean, that game was not home free for the Rockets until the last minute or so, and that's the last thing they wanted to do is board a plane to go back to Salt Lake. So they were pushed more than I thought they were going to be pushed, and Paul bailed the team out. I don't know if they would have won that game last year without Paul. They probably wouldn't have, and it would have been in bigger trouble. I don't know if they would have lost the series, but they would have lost that game. And so Houston, listen, they lost. They're 8-2 in the postseason. They were 3-1 up in both their first and second round series against fairly competitive teams. Utah beat Oklahoma City. They won 48-49 games. Utah won a game in Houston in the first two, which made Houston pay attention in games 3 and 4 in Salt Lake City. And they won both those games going away by 13 in game 4, by a whole bunch in game 3. So, Houston had to at least pay attention. They were challenged a bit, and they did respond. So, and Houston's the team that has to prove that they can handle a challenge more than Golden State does. Golden State's been a big-time basketball team with championships 2 out of the last 3 years. They don't have to prove anything to anybody. I mean, Houston does. And so Houston gets to where they want to get. Now we sit for 6 days because of television. We sit for 6 days and we wait for this series to kick off, and it will be our Monday night. TNT has the West this year and ESPN has the East. Normally, ESPN always gets the better series. I would have thought about a month ago that they were in big trouble looking at an Indiana, Boston final, but now they got LeBron in there and they have the Celtics most likely. So they'll have some juice with that. And I thought maybe before the postseason started, maybe Golden State was a little more vulnerable, Curry and everything else, injured and what have you. But as it turns out right now, I would think Golden State would win this series in 5 games. Harder to pick Golden State to win this series in 5 games because they're not the home team. So, normally when you pick a team to win in 5, a la the New Orleans series that we just saw, you win the 2 home games, you get a split on the road, you come back and win game 5. Here it's a little different because game 5 is back in Houston. And so the Rockets, even if they were down 3-1, you would figure they would, battle to the death in game. Although that franchise I never trust. I don't trust those players or the coach to dig deep when they have to. But maybe they will go out there and dig deep in a game 5 to survive for another day and get on a plane to go back to Golden State. So, here we are. You can make an argument about reseeding if you wish. We've talked about this an awful lot in this particular round where, one plays 4 and 2 plays 3. So then your best 2 teams get to the final. We're not at that point yet because we're not so sure that Houston is clearly the second best team in the league. If in fact we find out here in the next month or 3 weeks that Houston was by far the best team, let's say they push Golden State into a classic and the Cleveland-Boston survivor gets drilled in the final, well then maybe we can have a little more discussion about reseeding. I'm all for it. I have no problem with it. I think it would make certain teams play a little harder the last 7 or 8 games of the regular year, maybe to avoid a great team like Golden State in the semifinals of the tournament. So from that standpoint, it might put a little more pedal to the metal. So I don't have a problem with it. And in this case, we'd obviously would have Houston would play Cleveland in this round and Boston would play the Warriors. And then we go from there. Now remember, let's face it. If we get a Cleveland Golden State, that will not sell this year. I know LeBron sells normally all the time, but a 4th consecutive year of Cleveland and the Warriors is a tough sell for the good basketball fan. Now, maybe the average person will get involved because he doesn't pay too much attention until he gets to this level of basketball, especially in the NBA, the older guy. So maybe he'll be revved up and he'll give LeBron, as most do, a puncher's chance against anybody. So that will work with that fan. It wouldn't work with me because I don't see where, in fact, Cleveland has gotten better from a year ago. They have no Kyrie Irving. I don't see where they have gotten better from a year ago where they would be able to challenge the Warriors this year more than they did last year. And last year they were down 3-0 before they lost in 5 games. And that's no disgrace losing in 5 games, but they were down 3-0. They won the game 4 because the Irving and LeBron show made a million threes. And then, of course, they were relatively competitive in game 5 before they went out. I would be pretty surprised if I'll go by my first point. I would be surprised if Houston puts Golden State in that wary mode where, there actually is a little nervousness in the Bay Area. I would be surprised if Houston was able to do that. Houston, to me, again, I got to see Harden in this spot. They're going to let those 2 point guards, which is what they have, direct traffic at the top of the key and near the top of the foul circle, and they're going to have them penetrate and try the alley-oops to Capella or throw them into the corners where those spots are. P.J. Tucker here, Eric Gordon over there. Here's Ryan Anderson on the left wing. And, set and Ariza and set people up for threes. That's how they're going to play that series. And let's see if Golden State can defend that properly. Again, I'd be surprised. The question you'd have is, will Golden State win a 5th game in Houston or they come back and win in 6? The series will not go 7. And I do think Golden State will be 3-1 up and after 4. Because I don't think Houston's going to win in Golden State. The series will not go 7. The question is, do I want to be nice and give Houston a 5th game? I'll say no. I will say Warriors will lose a game, but advance. How's that? And if anything happens where we're sitting here at 2-2 game 5, or the Rockets earlier than that have a lead with the Warriors in trouble, I will praise them. I will praise them. If they ever make it a best of 3 with 2 games at home, I will praise them. They make the Warriors win their last 2 games down 3-2, I will praise Houston. That's what they have to do in this series. If they lose I won't even say classic. If they lose with their boots up and they play hard and they win their games and they make the Warriors really have to play well and at least concentrate, I'll give them credit. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. 19 after the hour. Good to have you aboard. Your calls. Mad Dog on Lane.